So is it true that some students just are not good in math and that they will never be good in math? I want to talk about that in this video because it's something that many of us believe, probably most of us believe, but we want to like investigate that in this video. And I think that'll be good for me to talk about since I tutor in math and since I've done a lot of math in my career. Now, it's true. I do believe that some people are just born with a knack for math. They just came into this world, and whether it be genetic, something that's passed down, or whatever, they just have a naturally analytical mind. Um, or it could even be that they were exposed, whether it be intentionally or unintentionally, they were exposed to things that kind of like caused them to kind of develop a more analytical mind. So that these things are true. However, in short, I don't believe that some students are just destined to not be good in math, regardless of how they were born. I don't believe that. Check this out. In my own personal life, when I was in grade school, K through 12, I did well. And math was naturally one of the things I was pretty good at. It was also one of the things, it was probably the subject I enjoyed the most. When I went to college, when I went to engineering school, as I've said in previous videos, I had to take I took Calc 1, I had taken that in high school, but I also had to take Calc 2, differential equations, and what you call multivariable calculus. And then my physics classes, Physics 1 and Physics 2 were calculus based. And then all of my other engineering classes were math based as well. And so I took a lot of math. When I got to college, I struggled in a few of those math classes. Calculus 1, I did pretty well because I did very well because I'd already taken it in high school. I just didn't score high enough on the AP to exempt it. But I made an A in high school, made an A in college. Calculus 2, I made a B, but it was a struggle. Calculus 3, I did fine. Calculus 4, I struggled a lot. And so this is why I don't necessarily believe that it's all about how you're born. Because what I learned in that is even though I was naturally good in math, these were challenging classes for me. And so they really taught me that my study game needed to go up. So that said, I believe that anybody, no matter how you started, can become good in math. But these are two things that I believe must happen, two things you have to do to become good at math or better in math, whatever pertains to you. The first thing is probably the most important thing, and it is, do you believe? You have to believe that you can be good in math. Some people just don't believe. They believe that in the past they began to struggle, and or they struggle early on, and it's just not for them. But as hard as it might be, you actually have to believe that it's possible for you. Because think about it this way: if a baby didn't believe he or she could walk, then there would be no repeated attempts at the falling and falling and falling and falling. But a baby wants to walk and believes that he or she can walk. And so they do it again and again and again. And guess what? They learn it eventually. So you actually have to believe to be able to unlock the possibility of being able to be good in math. Okay. So that's one thing. Like I said, that's probably the most important thing because you really get what you believe. If you don't believe for it, it's really like the door is closed and locked. Okay. But you hold the key by your belief. That's number one. The second thing that you have to do is you got to learn how you learn. And I believe that the reason why a lot of people struggle in math is because they haven't learned how they best learn it. Okay. Think about it. Again, some people may be born with a knack for math. And so they might be more so used to thinking about stuff in certain kind of systematic ways that's helpful for them, you know. But at the same time though, if you're somebody who has trouble with learning math, it doesn't mean that you're just bad. It could just be that you don't really have certain kind of frameworks that work for you as an individual. So I've talked about something here on this channel. I've talked about what I refer to as the 3 E's of study, and I'm not going to rehash all of that here, but I'm just going to mention in brief what I believe is, based on my own experience, a general framework for how you can learn to study. Now, there's room for variability in this framework, so that's why I have it as a very loose framework. But I believe that any student can somewhere in here kind of find the things that work for them. Again, keeping in mind that just because you don't learn the way somebody else learns doesn't mean that somehow you're just not able to learn. It just means that you have to find your way. So my framework is the 3 E's of studying: expose, examine, and execute. Expose yourself to the material by just reading the material, read the book, listen to the lecture, that type of thing. You have to learn something new, you have to be exposed to it initially. And then the next stage, examine, you have to have some level of going further in depth. Like you have to, for example, read the book again, take notes, or if you took notes, review those notes thoroughly, like with actually trying to understand. It could even also be that you create your notes in a way that you understand. You have to be able to, when you're studying in some way, shape, or form, you kind of almost have to like teach yourself. And you learned that a lot in college, but you have to like, okay, this is how I understand this. Once you get understanding, you might want to document it exactly the way you understand. Do example problems. You know, you may have had example problems in your notes, or you might have some example problems in the book. Do those. So these are the kind of things that you do when you go to stage two, which is you examine it. You have to have some level of going further in depth when you really engage the material and try to understand. And then the third thing is execute. You need to like really, really basically test yourself, test your knowledge, whether that be through a formal test in class or a self test. Okay. Just like when I used to study, when I was a teenager studying for the SAT, I took several practice tests on my own. I timed myself. I got in an environment that was quiet and whatnot, and I tested myself so I could kind of see how much better I was doing based on all of my practice. Okay, it could even, but it doesn't also, it doesn't have to be necessarily formal each time. It could be you read something and then you kind of go back and okay, let me see if I can kind of remember that. So if I do this and then go check and see if you got it right. You see what I'm saying? So you might just kind of like do like a little quick test, do a problem. Okay, I'm gonna do this free away from my notes, away from help, so I can kind of see. Then you can go back and look, and if you miss anything, you can kind of track and see where you missed it. But in some way, shape, or form, I believe that we all kind of study or learn something in a way kind of like that. But I believe that that regardless of how you start in math, if you can actually believe that it's possible for you to be good in math, and you can actually dedicate yourself to learning yourself, learning how you learn, you can become good in math. I especially say this, and I'll close the video after this. I especially say this for the individual, and I've known people, students that I've served, the individual who you want to get into a STEM career, it involves a lot of math, but you were concerned because you haven't done well in math in the past, and you are on the verge of switching your major, changing your dream, or abandoning your dream rather, because you believe, well, if I have to go through math and I'm just not going to do it, but I really do want to do this type of career, this type of thing in my life. If you can dedicate yourself to learning how you learn After first believing that it's possible for you to be good in math, you can become good in math. I promise you, you can. Hey, thank you for watching this video. If you need math tutoring or you need SAT math help, look in the description to find out how you can sign up today. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you stay in touch with Math Swap Tutoring on YouTube. Have a good one.